Hello everyone, today I will be showing you guys some tips on how to organize your garages in GTA Online. Now obviously it's your garage, you organize your cars how you want, but if you want a cleaner look in all of your garages and you need some tips, maybe you don't know how, these are for you. My first tip I can give you, the biggest tip I can give you is organize by classes. Kind of. So basically you want to organize by classes that you can visibly see, not the classes that the game assigns a car, because here on the far left we have Deity. The Deity is listed as a sedan. Then next to it, the black car, that is the Windsor Drop. The Windsor Drop is listed as a coupe. And next to the Windsor Drop we have the Jugular, which is listed as a sports car. But all of these cars are sedans. They all have four doors and they are sedan body styles. So even though Rockstar calls them by different classes, you always want to go by the classes that you can visibly see most of the time. For example, a lot of older cars, more earlier OG supercars, are sports cars for some reason. I believe the Coquette is listed as a sports car, which I guess I get, but there's a lot of other OG cars that are listed as classes that they shouldn't be in, but you could tell they're interchangeable for a supercar or a sports car or whatever given class the car is. And if you were to only take away one tip from this video, it's probably this one, because this is the biggest tip I can give you. Organize by classes that you can see. Do not organize by the class that the game assigns a car, because they just assign a car any given class and it really has no merit. The next tip I can give you is organize from biggest to smallest. The biggest cars should be in the back. Here is my SUV garage. I'll do a full garage tour soon coming up, but I have the biggest SUVs in the back, and then as I go along the line they progressively get smaller and smaller and smaller, ever so slightly. And this is how you want to organize your garages, because it just makes it that much easier to run in, pick and choose a car, because if you have a big car in the front, it blocks whatever cars are behind it. Even though you should be able to memorize which cars are in which position, it just makes your life so much better and it looks so much more aesthetic. If you have the bigger cars in the front, they block everything, screenshots don't come out very well, and they kind of just hide all the cars behind them. Now this tip doesn't just apply for SUVs. Here is my classics garage, cars that are pretty old and can be considered classics. I have the slightly bigger ones in the back, even though they're not even that big, and they progressively get smaller and smaller and smaller. Now I will say this, here I have the Hermes. The Hermes is not tall, but it's long. So it makes it kind of weird to put it in a certain spot, because it's not necessarily big, but it peeks out over the other cars. I can really only tell you to go with what you prefer on this one, because longer cars don't necessarily make a garage harder to view. It's kind of messy, but generally speaking, if all cars are the same height but some are shorter and some are longer, put the longer ones in the back and put the shorter ones in the front. This is also a pretty great tip I don't see a lot of people utilizing. Next up, we have organize your cars by age. What I mean by that is organize them by time period. Here is my OG supercars / sports cars garage, even though there's a coupe in here, but whatever, rant incoming, I'll just cut it here. And all these cars are OG except for the Chameleon. That one is from the Xbox One, PlayStation 4 next gen, but at this point that's pretty old. A lot of these cars are old, and that's what you want to stick with. Kind of. You can bend the rules for one car. As you see, I did the Chameleon there. The Chameleon is not OG, but it's OG enough. And it just makes everything so much easier when you're calling your mechanics, scrolling down the menus. You don't have to go into a garage that also has new cars, but has really old cars, and then has some cars that are decently new and some cars that are decently old. It just makes everything a lot more simple for you to view, not necessarily other people, because other people cannot see your mechanics list, so they don't see all your garages and the cars within those garages. But for you personally, it makes quality of life way better in my opinion. I know some people who mix their cars with time periods, and you can, but I just advise don't, especially if you haven't made the garage yet but you just want to start collecting. Do it before the garages get mixed up, and that's another general tip as well. But as far as this one goes, do not put cars that are from separate time periods. Try to stick them all together so it makes more sense for you to view. Another tip I can give you is do not organize cars by price. Here is my classic muscle car garage. There's a lot of muscle cars in here with varying price points. Here I have the Imperator. The Imperator is over 2 million easily, because I have the Arena War conversion, even though I didn't slap on the mods. The Nitrous is pretty expensive. Then we have the ZZ8. The ZZ8 is like 1.5. The Impaler is like 400. The GTT is like 900. This Gauntlet Classic is like 600, and the Gauntlet Classic Custom is like 1 million. All of these have varying different price points, but I put them all together because they're all muscle cars that look similar. Do not try to exclude cars that are not expensive in a garage that has expensive cars, and vice versa. Just because I think it's hard to match that. If you can and you want to go for that theme, you certainly can. If you find 10 cars that are pretty expensive and they're all supercars, then that makes sense. But it gets harder the more you build up your collection, because cars with different categories may fit in different garages, and when you try to mix them, the price points get muddled. settled, and then they don't match, and then you're gonna have to figure that whole mess out. So do not even worry about price when you're making a collection. Just put cars with varying different price points. As long as they look the same, they're in the same class, whatever, then throw them in together. I see a lot of people do the opposite of this, where they will just stick to one price point for every garage. Most of the time in free mode, when randoms invite me to their garage, it'll be a garage full of really expensive supercars. And once again, that's fine, but if you're trying to go for a clean, organized collection, don't even worry about price point. It will save you a lot of headache and a lot of organizing. Something else I see a lot is people will choose one color and organize their entire garage by that one color. For you personally, I would just advise against doing this. Here's my hypercar / supercar garage. All these cars are varying different colors. I try not to match colors too much. As you can see here, the T20 is a bright orange, and back there the 811 is orange, but they're far apart enough to tell that they're different colors. I always see people have their garage and it's all modded cars with white wheels and white walls, and the car's white. I don't have anything against the color white, but don't have so much of it. Have some variety in your garage, just so when you invite someone over, it doesn't look so plain and boring. Now, if you don't invite people to your garages over, or you're not in your garages a lot of the time, this actually wouldn't matter that much, because the only person who would actually notice this is you, because you actually call your cars from the garage and you see the garage sometimes. Players will not really notice your garage has all the same colored cars unless they're like your close friends and you always play with them and you show them the garage. Like, they just won't know. Because say you call in a car from the same garage, all of this is in the same garage. You call in a car and it's white, you call in another one and it's white, you call in another one and it's white. If you're in a public session playing by yourself, no one is going to know that all your cars are white because you're driving a different car every time. But generally speaking, please have different colors in your garages. Here's another quick peek at how I do this. This is my rally car garage. Now, I do have a lot of blue and red in this garage, but I spaced them out strategically, as you can see here. I very purposefully do not put a blue car next to another blue car, a red car next to a red car. I put a red, a blue, a red, a blue, maybe throw in a silver in between the two, or a white, just so it's easier on the eyes, easier to view, and it makes your garage look that much better. Another tip I can give you is do not organize by DLC. Now, this is something that a lot of people will not care about, and a lot of people try. And I tried to do this. Here's my auto shop, and most of these cars are from the Tuners DLC. But I got to a point where I bought all the sports cars from the DLC and no other car fit. Now, there were muscle cars in this DLC, but I didn't want to put a muscle car with modern sports cars. So I had to pivot and make this garage just a modern sports car garage instead of a Tuners DLC garage, because I just ran out of cars from the DLC to use. Now, I will say I tried to do this as the DLC was going, and I just hoped that they would add a sports car for my garage. It never ended up happening. But if you want to do this for a DLC that's been out for a long time, like gun running or the Tuners DLC now, then you can go ahead, because you have all the cars at your disposal already. You don't have to anticipate a drip feed car to fill up a space in your garage. But whenever a DLC is still in the works, or whenever it's drip feeding cars, just try not to make a garage around that one DLC. It's kind of a headache and a lot of stress, honestly. Okay, not really stress, but you're kind of just worried that they won't add a car to fill that space in your garage. And then if you're like me, you have to pivot to a different category, and it's just a mess. Don't do it in the first place to start out. A big general tip I can give you is do not buy garages that are far away. Here, there is a house in Paleto Bay. There's a couple houses in Paleto Bay, and I had both of these, but then I traded it in for a 10-car garage in the city, because I never found myself, let me drive all the way up to Paleto Bay to go get my car. I'll just call the mechanic, but then at that point, I'm missing out on 4 extra spaces, because the places up here only have 6 spaces. So at that point, why not buy the garage in the city that has 10 spaces for both of them? So I'll get 8 extra cars in total. Big brain moves, you know what I'm saying? Why miss out on those extra cars when you could have in the first place? If you're someone like me, then this is really important. But if you're like a newer player, you don't have a lot of money, then this is probably kind of irrelevant, because you're not really worried about spaces. You don't even have enough money to fill up those spaces with cars. I already used all my spaces actually, so it kind of sucks. I wish they would add more, but I don't think they're gonna add more, because they just added a 50-car garage. They're not gonna add another one anytime soon, I don't think. But if you're someone my rank and you're missing out on space, and you have these places up here in Paleto Bay or Blaine County or anywhere, just get a garage with 10 cars, because it just makes more sense. It's not worth having a garage all the way up here that ideally is not great. No one wants to drive up here just for a car. They'll just call their mechanic, and then it goes back to the point of me saying that it just makes more sense to get a 10-car garage because there's more spaces. The next general tip I can give you is kind of going back to the previous one, which is buy 10-car garages to maximize space. A lot of people have places up in Paleto Bay and Blaine County to try to, seem diversive in their assets or whatever. Like, who cares? Just buy the most efficient places to store your cars if you're hurting on space. Once again, if you're a new player, this is kind of irrelevant to you because you're broke. and you don't have enough money to fill those spaces anyways. And if you're worried about prices, like, oh, the places over here must be too expensive, I'm just gonna stay over there, these are actually very cheap. This week, all these places are on sale, but even without the sale, they are still very cheap for modern GTA Online standards. You can make money so easily. Just do 1 kill Pericle and that's it, because you could only do one for the week, and I'm not even going to get started on that. But they're very cheap, very efficient, and just buy them. They just make more sense. Even if I was a new player, I'd be able to afford this easily, and I actually have some of these just because I don't think it's that cool looking to have like 5 Eclipse Tower apartments when you could have different ones around the city. It makes more sense too, because if you're getting griefed by someone and you have an apartment across the street, you could just run to the apartment across the street and you are absolutely safe. You don't have to worry, oh, I'm all the way at the docks and the only apartment I have is Eclipse Towers and I have to go all the way over there. You can just go to your apartment that is close to the docks. Well, no apartment is really close to the docks, but you know what I mean. I was using it as an example. But yeah, it just makes more sense, and they're not much more expensive as well. And that is it, everyone. A few tips to help you organize your garages in GTA Online. I did this video because I always see people's garages and they're absolutely messy, and they're not terrible, but they just need work. And hopefully if you struggle with this video helped you out. If it did, make sure to absolutely smash the like button. I'm kidding, you could gently tap it. Have a good day and goodbye.